Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter. Joining me, as always, is Tim.
Gotta go feed those alpacas.
I'm going to be honest, Tim. I think if you'd showed me an alpaca, like an image of one, and said, what animal is that? I don't know if I'd have gotten it right before this movie. I don't know if I would have, but don't get me wrong. I'm familiar with alpacas, but I feel like if you showed me the image, and I don't think I'd get it off the top of my head. If you said that's an alpaca, I'd go, oh, of course, yeah, it would click in place. But I don't think I would have immediately went, that's an alpaca, the second I looked at it. But why I'm telling everyone this, I don't know. This is a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror films every week. We get together, we watch the movie, we talk about it. It's that simple. This episode, we are finally getting to Colour Out of Space, the Richard Stanley directed film starring Nicolas Cage and a bunch of other folk. This is, even though it came out in festivals in 2019, we are going to, for the sake of later, award purposes, count this as 2020.
Because that's the technical theater release date was 2020.
Yeah, so that's fine.
It wasn't a huge release, but I think it's close enough.
Limited, but yeah, it'll do. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get to spoilers, somewhere in the middle, and we'll get down to business. This is a Lovecraft based story, and it's Nicolas Cage and his family living in a farmhouse in the middle of the forest, essentially, and of course a meteorite of some kind lands one night. And weird stuff happens as a result. And I will leave it there as far as spoilers goes until there. So, Tim.
Yeah.
I feel like I already know the answer to this question, but I shall ask it anyway. How do you feel about Colour Out of Space?
I freaking love this movie. This is my second time watch. I got to see it last year at Beyond Fest, and I was just blown away. Really great movie to see in theaters. But, watching it again, I just think it's a great adaptation. I think sometimes Lovecraft is really hard to do, and I think Richard Stanley did a great job. Which it's him directing this in and of itself is a really cool story, considering it's been 20 years or so I think since he's directed anything.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Richard Stanley from one movie. I know Hardware, which was like 1991 or something like that. Is around that time. It's a sci-fi movie, which I'm sure we'll do on the Ace at some point. But I really liked how that movie looked and felt. It's not really a great story, but I remember just really liking the experience of watching it. So I don't know if that was his last movie before this, or if there was another one or two. But
I think he's only done 2 movies before this. It was Hardware and Dust Devil. If he's done more, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure he only had 2 major movies, and then what happened is, if you haven't watched this, I urge everyone to watch the documentary on the Island of Dr. Moreau movie. I think it's called something like Doomed Souls or Lost Souls or something. The story of Richard Stanley, Island, Dr. Moreau, whatever. It's just look it up, but it's really fascinating because he was hired to do that movie, and then so many weird, crazy things happened, and eventually he was fired from the movie, but then he stayed on the island they were filming, and he actually dressed up as one of the extras and put spells on the movie, and because he's a weird guy that believes in magic and stuff. And then but yeah, it was such a traumatic experience. He basically was out of the limelight for 20 years, and then they made the documentary about that, and then I think that kind of reinvigorated him a little bit, which led to this. But I think it's a phenomenal movie. I like all the characters in it. I think Nick Cage gives a great performance. He has that. I think he does a really good job as a dorky dad in the beginning, and then once all the stuff starts happening, I think he goes into that crazy Cage mode. That's just really so much fun and entertaining to watch, and some really great body horror. Special effects are great. I really like everything about it. It's just a really cool, trippy movie, and I think it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, I had expectations great at this because I really liked Hardware. I'd heard you kind of imply you were raving about this, and it sounded like a really cool title. The basic premise, I didn't really know a lot about it, but Nicolas Cage, Richard Stanley, pretty colors in the poster, and all that stuff. And I think it's pretty good. I don't know if I love it as much as I wanted to, and I think that's mainly down to expectations, perhaps, and maybe down to like.
Sure.
I think I was expecting something even weirder. Like I was expecting some sort of transcendent, like not David Lynch, but like I was expecting something like really weird, and it does have weird moments, but it's a lot more normal than I think I was expecting, especially kind of the build-up stuff, at least where it's the family living in the house, and like it felt like a movie that could have been made any time in the 80s or 90s with a family and like sort of getting to know them before the weird stuff happens, which isn't a bad thing, but I think I came into this expecting like to be completely like whoa, like what's going, and the weirdest thing is that what's his face? Tommy Chong's like in this right after we just saw him in another movie like a week ago. At the time of recording, patrons will know what we're talking about there because they'll have had the bonus movie by that point. So yeah, but no, I do like I think it does get stronger in the back half, and I do think the creature. A creature, that's not the right word. It's not a creature, but like the body horror, the special effects. There's only really one moment where there's some CG where I went, oh, that looks a bit iffy, but for the most part, the effects really do look good, and I appreciate its willingness to go all out. I think the biggest problem with Lovecraft a lot of times in adapting Lovecraft, not that I've really read any, but from what I understand, it is so much of what Lovecraft has is stuff is described as like unfathomable, where it's like, how do you put that in a movie, because you have to show something, and if you're saying that it's something we can't comprehend, as soon as you show it to us we can comprehend it. So it's really difficult, you know. So
I've only read a little bit of Lovecraft, but I have like a big collection of all his stuff. I'm kind of slowly making my way through it, but yeah, it's kind of funny because like a lot of it is just like a narrator talking about how he sees something undescribable, and it's just so you can't even imagine it. It makes you go crazy, and it's like, oh yeah, this is an interesting story, but yeah, kind of hard to put that on screen. And I think I haven't read this story, but from what I know of it, I think that is something similar where it's like a meteorite lands and it emits like this color that kind of starts like infusing like into everything, but like the color again is when the people are describing it, they're describing it as indescribable. Like, it's all like, oh, this color from outer space you can't fathom, and then
we see it and it's pink.
And I know I listened to a podcast with Richard Stanley, and he kind of explained why he went with that color, and I forget the exact reason. I think there's maybe something about the like placement in this like color spectrum or whatever it is there that. There's something to it that made it seem like otherworldly or something, but he did actually have a reason for it. But yeah, I mean, when you see it on screen, it just like, it's kind of pinkish purplish, but I mean, it looks cool, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it dazzles with the sparkles and whatnot. The cast is actually like, I recognized a lot of the cast members in this. All the kids are from something. The daughter was in an episode of Legends of Tomorrow, because I recognized her face and looked her up. The older son is from the OA Netflix show, which I really liked. And then the younger son is also from a Netflix show. He was the youngest kid on Haunting the Hill House. So so all the kids were like, oh, I recognize all these faces. This is interesting. Then obviously Nick Cage is Nick Cage, because in Nick Cage. It's interesting. I'm generally shocked with how conventional the first half of the movie is. Not in a bad way, just in the sense that it feels like a normal movie. It feels like a normal movie about a family in a house and, build up to weird stuff happening. And it's not until stuff starts going really weird in the second half. And I guess if I was to compare it to anything, I'd compare it to like something like From Beyond or something like that, where like there's some body horror stuff and weird things happening, but it's fairly easy to wrap your head around for the most part. Like some of the narration, the end or the stuff like that sort of describes stuff as being like otherworldly and unimaginable, and it's the sort of thing where I feel like if this was made and came out like in the early 80s, like it would probably be like this otherworldly movie that would still be remembered today. As it is, this is a really cool movie that feels like a throwback more than anything else to me, bizarrely. As opposed to like some new hip thing that like I can't get my head around, which again isn't a complaint.
I think the alpacas are kind of the newest thing in it.
Yes, and Nicolas Cage drinking the alpaca milk as soon as it comes out when it's still warm. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. But yeah, so no, I think the first thing that struck me on the movie when it gets going, because it does this thing at the start where it's kind of a fake out where you think it's a flashback to like olden times because we see like this young woman and she's doing like witchcraft, and then it turns out to just be present day and she's just kind of weird. This is a teenage daughter, because Ward, the hydrologist, sort of runs into her, who's like kind of the other character apart from the family. But it's just that immediately, and I guess this is just because I've watched a lot of bad movies recently, and I'm so used to these like VOD horror movies having kind of subpar rating and acting that I just kind of felt like impressed by the fact that she felt like she wasn't struggling to act. And I was like, oh, she's actually coming across like a proper movie character. And not even anything special necessarily, just like, oh, she's not struggling. It seems it's well written enough and directed enough that I'm not noticing just like the movie trying to feel like a movie. It just is a movie. And I'm like, I kind of respect that. Alright, the video viewers will notice a slight difference has just happened on screen. Audio people won't care, but Tim has now turned off his camera because his internet's been acting up, and we've had to like pause the recording like 5 times already because the connection keeps going away. It's more stable if it's audio only on Tim's end, so unfortunately for the video for this episode, and probably at least 1 or 2 other episodes we're doing today, Tim will just be audio. Although the video people will get to look at a wonderful picture of him with some kangaroos. So, unfortunately, this is how we must proceed. So, yes, Color Out of Space. I like the music. Very ethereal.
Yeah, definitely works for the movie.
Yeah, adds to the other world, the kind of vibe that it's going for, which is cool. I will say, I mean, I'd probably cut the time down a little bit. It's an hour 50. And I think that's just maybe a touch on the lengthy side for this.
Yeah, you can probably trim down like some stuff in the beginning a little bit. Like I don't think it needs like 30 minutes cut out or anything. But you can probably get like 5-10 minutes maybe.
Yeah, I think maybe a little from the beginning and maybe just a little from the middle. Like, there's a portion in the middle where there's a lot of weird stuff happening that all feels kind of disconnected, and I almost feel like I don't know if you need all of them to happen. Like I don't know if every single weird thing that happens in the middle is something that we needed, because I mean certainly when we go through the plot, I don't think I'm going to be able to remember them all, and certainly not in order, because they all just kind of happen around themselves. So
that's one thing I kind of like about it, is I do like how it feels like each character has their own I guess maybe kind of like journey or maybe like their own horror that happens to them, and I like kind of like how different each thing is, because especially like I feel like the daughter almost has like a more like magical time, which I think is like kind of cool, like versus like the mother and stuff, who's having like a very very like almost Cronenberg-esque like body horror situation, like and then like the dad has like kind of like a almost more like a mental kind of breakdown kind of thing, and like Tommy Chong's character is like almost like very sci-fi. Like I like how there's like all these little sprinklings of different things that's happening to everybody.
Yeah, and I think what will surprise me as well is that if you were coming into this and expecting like a Nicolas Cage sort of vehicle, as it were, like he's not like he's not the central character, and I think the opening of the movie makes you think it's going to be the teenage daughter, but then she isn't really either. It's very evenly split amongst the at least the 4 older family members. I think the young kid, the younger brother, gets a bit less just because he's younger, because of his age. I mean, he's there, obviously he's doing stuff. The other characters do feel less central, but the 4 main family members I think feel pretty equal. It doesn't feel like Nick Cage is hogging the spotlight or anything like that. He feels like he's even to the son, to the teenage daughter, to the mom. Like all 4 of them feel like they get their even amount of screen time, I suppose, more or less. I mean, I'm sure if you actually sort of counted, it wouldn't be equal, but it feels equal is kind of the point.
I think you do get some like classic like Nick Cage freakouts in this, but it does like actually fit the story though.
Yeah, it fits what's going on. Yeah, that's pretty much the idea. I think I do think the last like third of the movie is when it gets the strongest, and it gets the most kind of wackiest, and it has the most interesting ideas. And yeah, so I think we'll go to spoilers then. So I'll give the spoiler warning. Before we go into spoilers, though, I will thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess for being patrons. For being Patreon producer specifically, which is $20 and up on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and that $1 per month will get you access to an exclusive bonus episode. By the time this goes out, there'll probably be like 17 of those episodes in the back catalogue, which you'll access for the $1 per month. Plus, there's a new one every month, of course. So that's just $1 per month if you want access to that. $5 per month gets you access to the review episodes one day early, as well as a vote once per month. So, spoilers then for Colour Out of Space. So the movie starts and we get to know the family. We get to know the mum does stock market stuff, and she's always complaining that the internet's not good enough. But Tim can relate, of course.
Oh yeah.
The daughter's into witchcraft and stuff, and like I said earlier, she starts off and she's in this get-up. She's got like a robe on and she's doing witchcraft. The son's a bit of a pothead, and he is that's basically his. Essentially, but of course the big thing is that on the night after they've been having a sort of reasonable family dinner, Nicolas Cage and the wife are having sex seemingly for the first time since she had an operation 6 months ago, which I'm only really mentioning. I mean, obviously it's important to her character that this idea of because she keeps saying things like how can you even look at me or be attracted to me anymore after everything, and so it sets up some character stuff. But the reason why I mention it is because after the meteor happens and this big flash of purple light happens and everyone's freaked out, and the mayor and the sheriff come out of this small town to check it. I thought it was really weird that Nicolas Cage, when he's explaining what was happening, he says to the mayor, "Oh, so I was in bed with my wife," and I was like, okay, that's a normal enough thing to say. But then he adds on, and it was the first time since the operation, and I'm like, why would you tell the mayor that? Why would you tell anyone that? That feels like a really private thing to just casually drop on someone. Oh yeah, we've not had sex since she had the operation, so it was a bit of a big night. I was finally getting some.
It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone's shit.
They don't have to. You keep it to themselves.
I'm pretty open.
Yeah, so I've heard too many stories. Everyone at home, I want you to know that. Too many stories, and there's some weird objects involved as well.
Oh well. Well, what are you gonna do?
Talk about Colour Out of Space. Oof.
Okay.
So, so from here, stuff doesn't seem too weird in the middle. There's some comedy here. They have the local news reporters come in to interview Cage, and we don't see the interview take place. We see them watching it air on TV later, and he's livid because they've made him look like a nutcase because they have the caption saying, "Oh, a local farmer claims UFO." Landed or UFO sighting, and he's yelling at the TV I didn't say UFO, you said UFO, I just said there was a meteor. And he keeps saying things that make him look really stupid. I liked how this was written actually, because it was the sort of thing where he was clearly nervous because he was on TV and he was kind of just saying really silly things that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Where the reporter says, "Were you sober when this happened?" And instead of just saying, "Yeah, I was sober," he goes, "Oh, well, I like a brandy," and that. And he starts mentioning where his brandy comes from, really specific details. I was like, this is of course the scene where the wife ends up cutting off her fingers because she's chopping carrots, and it keeps going. I was worried she was going to stab the kid because Nick Cage sends the young kid to go and fetch her because he wants her to come see the TV thing, and she's sort of zoning out as she's chopping, and the music's kind of ramping up, and I thought it was building up to the kid sort of tapping her on the shoulder or something, and her turning around and stabbing him in the sort of surprise moment, and that being where the movie goes. Instead, she just kind of keeps going and cuts off 2 of her fingers, and I'm like, whoa.
The kid just gets splattered with blood. That's it.
Yes. Just splattered with his mum's blood.
And then it's great too, because then the mother just seems so out of it, because then she raises her hand and her fingers are chopped off and bleeding. She's just dinner's ready.
Yeah, she's just acting normal. So and that's they go to the hospital, which we already established, because when the actual meteor happens, the kid was kind of zoning out a little bit, and the mum was concerned and wanted to take him to the hospital. So we know that the hospital's kind of over away. It's not like close by, because they live out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, they're on like a secluded farm. I forget if they said anything, but I thought it seemed like was part of it that they moved from the city to the farm because like Nicolas Cage wanted to like raise alpacas and be kind of like a farmer.
Yeah, well, even these kids keep criticizing him, like, why are we raising alpacas? No one cares about alpacas.
Yeah.
And he keeps saying that alpacas are the future.
Yeah. It's such a nice like little weird touch, and then like kind of like plays off like really cool like when you see the monster later on.
Yes, alpaca inclusive, shall we say. So the kids are left on their own, and it's like, okay, so they're kind of more vulnerable now because the parents are, even though the parents can't do shit anyway, like they're just as vulnerable when stuff gets going. But the kids are on their own, and the older son's left kind of in charge to like to put the alpacas back and stuff. And this is where the movie kind of gets like hard to kind of remember, really, because like so many little weird things kind of start happening with them on their own. Like time kind of like passes by without them realizing. The daughter kind of zones out.
Like the kid is like kind of talking to someone in the well.
Yeah, the kid's kind of talking to someone because they're just alone for a night. They're alone till the next night. It's like 24 hours they're left on their own. And the next day the kid's kind of like talking to someone, and like you say, and then the older son gets lost. He kind of just disappears for a while, and the daughter's like in the house and like is reading more magic stuff, and like it's again everyone kind of loses time.
Oh yeah, and then we're kind of glossing over. There's like some like Lovecraft references here. Like in the beginning, I think someone is is wearing like a Miskatonic University sweatshirt, which is like a big thing in Lovecraft. And then
Arkham, we haven't mentioned Arkham Hospital yet.
Yeah, and then of course the daughter. I think she was reading from the Necronomicon.
She was, yeah. That was on our table. I actually obviously Arkham comes from Lovecraft first, but obviously it's impossible to hear the word Arkham now and not think of Batman. But
right.
I assume that's why they chose Arkham in Batman. It's like, hey, this is got all these connotations because of Lovecraft. But
so also while everything's going on, like not just the kids, but also like the landscape is changing. Like lots of flowers and plants are growing. I'm not sure if this reminded you of Creepshow, but the second story.
Oh yeah, a little bit
based off of this.
Yeah, a little bit. It obviously becomes more obvious as the movie goes on because you start seeing like grass and flowers grow at, quick enough that you can actually see it happen. Whereas obviously now they're just noticing like the Nick Cage says, "Hey, did you plant those flowers?" like to his wife at one point. Like, hey, this is weird. So now like all this stuff is solid. It was kind of this point in the movie though where I was like, oh, this is entertaining enough, everything going on, but I was kind of feeling like, oh, this isn't kind of as like otherworldly as I was expecting. It's kind of more like normal movie stuff. I feel like it was such a weird complaint to make or a weird statement to make, but it does kind of heighten later on though. We've not mentioned Ward or obviously Chong's he plays this like old hermit tech guy who like has security cameras and he lives in the woods in this little shack. Ward, who's the hydrologist, goes out to speak to him. There's a couple of things that set up though that didn't really feel like they go anywhere. Like they set up that like the daughter like is kind of attracted to him. Like it's kind of like setting up like a sort of like will they won't they almost at the start of the movie, and then it kind of never really becomes that relevant for the rest of the thing. It never really matters.
I thought he was going to be more of a main character, and he does feel like a big character because it is a small cast, but he's only in the beginning a little bit, and then feels like maybe he becomes relevant, like maybe like the last third or so. Yeah,
he disappears for a big portion of the middle. With a big portion, like he comes by to like warn them not to drink the water because it's got something in it. Because we see him testing it with the pH paper, and then. But after he like notices the kid talking to someone and says have fun, he kind of goes away, and we don't see him again for like probably like 45 minutes, something like that. It's like a long time. So it definitely focuses on the family in that time. But we see like various different things happen because the mom and the dad come back from the hospital and they're mad at the kids because they've not put the alpacas away, and the son's like, I did, like I swear I did, or I tried, and I love the idea, like I love what it's getting at with some of this stuff. I wish like when they talk about losing time that it felt that surreal to us. I guess that's been my biggest complaint about the movie, is that it doesn't feel quite as like hypnotic and as like hard to kind of comprehend as the characters kind of say it is.
Sure.
That'd probably be my main thing. Which I think it's a problem in the middle because it's kind of like relying on that. Once we get to the actual like practical like physical deformations and stuff, though, it doesn't matter as much, and it's like easy to get into that in kind of a fun monster movie way, or a fun kind of other way. Like I think I was coming into this expecting like some sort of weird like David Lynch like mind f of a like movie, and instead it was more of a Stuart Gordon thing, which is fun. Like, don't get me wrong, that's not a complaint. But I think expectations were in a weird place for this, and it came sort of out in a different direction. Sure. But I think where it hurt the movie the most was in the middle section for me, with my expectations kind of feeling like had set me up for something completely different. But
yeah, I can watch Nicolas Cage try to eat tomatoes for a long time. So
oh yeah, he takes one bite of each one, just throws them in the trash, and then he gets pissed off at the wife, who then gets upset and like wants to go lie down because she's feeling out of it. Like everyone's acting kind of weird. Everyone's kind of. In fact, one of the things that I love is that every time it does slow motion drilling, like when the meteor first lands, and like everyone's kind of like in the moment, like the son's kind of like just at his computer and he's just kind of like frozen still, and the drill's just just coming out of his mouth, like just sort of hanging there. It's a really interesting visual, so I appreciate that. The big stuff though is when the color is actually starting to kind of like react and like deform the alpacas, and then eventually it actually like sort of like attacks the mother and son, like it sort of like shocks them when she's hugging them, and it kind of like hides from us what's actually happened to them for a while until they've got them up in the attic, and then we finally see that it's kind of merged them together, and the son's kind of coming out of the mum's back, and it's like, oh, this is actually grotesque and different and weird, and okay, all right, now we're going places. Yeah.
It looks so good, and it's like such like freaky body horror, and yeah, it's like it's so disturbing when you see like they can't really talk, and like seeing like the kid out of like coming out of the back, and it's just like I hate to say it, but like as soon as you see like put that thing out of its misery, like this needs to go.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, if it feels, I think it kind of relates to everyone's story. Like the mother was very overprotective of the young son. She also had dealt with something cancerous, because there's a line that kind of implies, because it never outright says exactly what she had, or what was going on, but we definitely know it was cancerous in some way, and this feels like a cancer. It feels like her son has become her own. It's become the cancer. Like that's the cancerous tumor in her back is her son. So I mean, I don't know if you want to read into that, like what that's saying about things, but at the same time, though, Nicolas Cage is dealing with the idea that he's becoming his father, because he mentions like, like, my father, I never expected to be on this farm like my father would have wanted of me, and it's the only thing that this father would ever have liked. But when he starts going crazy, he's watching like a Marlon Brando movie. He's like, oh, I put on your favorite movie, and he puts down like a glass of his booze next to where his father would sit, and I'm like, oh, he's proper losing. And so for him, it's about the father son dynamic, right? And then the teenagers, I guess for the son, it's about responsibility and the lack of it. And that's kind of like what it's getting at with him. And with the daughter, like you say, it's all the magic stuff, it's all the witchcraft stuff, and how that it kind of like it gets to her through that. So all of it feels specified to the person and what they're going through and what their issues are.
Yeah, I think that's really neat.
I thought I teed you up there for your wonderful insight.
Well, what are the alpacas going through? What's their arc?
They have an arc in their back.
Okay.
And it becomes one big arc as they all merge together. That's their arc.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, because of course Nicolas Cage puts them out of their misery, and then comes in and puts the mother and son out of their misery. But there is an extended little portion here where like the older son's like sort of like giving the mother like a bowl of water to drink, and she's like drinking it like a dog or a cat. You know, she's like, and it just is so like uncomfortable and disgusting. Yeah. And then eventually, like the son gets killed. So the older son, because the daughter and son are going to run away, and just as they do that, they think they hear something that the son or the dog, sorry, coming from the well.
The well.
And the son tries to climb down, and that's when the light starts to come up again, and it takes him in the well, and like so the daughter's left on her own essentially with the crazy dad, and the crazy dad like is getting mad at her, and she gets so scared that she like promises to like do whatever he wants, and he decides to, because this is before he kills the mum actually, the mother-son concoction, because he puts her in the attic to feed the mother, like essentially he's feeding his teenage daughter to his wife. But then he comes in. It's after the sheriff and Ward show up because they realize something's going on, and they come out here. Go on.
I'm sorry, was that after the daughter like cut herself up she was like doing a ritual?
Yeah, she was trying to like fix things by doing a ritual, and she ends up like bleeding onto the book.
Yeah. And I was gonna ask you too, did you think that the color, like, did you think of it as a sentient kind of malevolent presence, or did you think it was more like just like kind of a force of nature thing? Because like I never really felt like it was specifically targeting these things. I just thought maybe it was like some weird unstable thing, and like when it would do those kind of like explosions or whatever, it kind of felt more like a like an ocean wave or something crashing over someone. Like it's not doesn't mean to do that, but
I didn't get sentient necessarily, but I don't know, you could read it. I think if you wanted to argue that it was some kind of sentient force, you could, but I didn't get that from it. And probably my favorite tease of the cosmic stuff is later after like Nick Cage, because Nick Cage gets shot by the sheriff when he raises his gun, because the sheriff thinks he's going to shoot the other guy and kills him. This is after, of course, Nick Cage has shot his wife and says, "This isn't my family anymore." So he's properly lost it, right? He's properly gone. But I love that like basically through the magical symbol on the daughter's head, Ward's with her. And he gets like a glimpse of like whatever planet this came from, and it's like just this like this, it's like all these little organisms on the surface and like this big tower, and it's like, oh man, I love the tease of this stuff. I love the tease of like, it's kind of what I love about Phantasm, this idea of teasing this other dimension that the villains came from, but without getting too specific, so it lets our imagination go kind of wild with it. I kind of dig that, and it makes me wonder, like, is this like color? Is it an accident it landed here, or is it here to try and take over another planet, or is it like, what's the like? Is it intentional that it was sent here, or is it just a happenstance?
Totally, yeah. Like I like all those all those teases,
all those cheesies. Tell us more about the cheesies, Tim. Tell us more.
Well, if you haven't had alpaca cheese, you simply must. But no, I mean, that's like, one of the things I really like about the movie is like there is so much weird stuff going on. It does feel like cosmic and otherworldly, and like you said, it's not like a it's not like vague and weird and like a mind f, which I mean, that definitely could be a direction to go in. Like, that could have been an interesting way to take it, but I like that it's kind of easy to follow around, but it still gives you like like glimpses of other stuff to kind of ponder about.
Yeah, I think what maybe would have put this over the edge for me is maybe like a strong central character kind of arc, maybe for someone like someone who could really like go through something with it. As it is, I think it's really solid though. Obviously. The daughter, dies as well by the end. Like, the whole family's gone. The only one who survives, because everything starts to kind of erupt, and it's starting to, like, the light's starting to react. It really does feel like it's just like a chain reaction of things where it eventually overloads. And Ward's the only one who survives. In fact, the moment I was mentioning the CG, just to mention this before I go to the ending, Ward and the sheriff go to get the Chong's character, and he's already dead, and he's got like a recording of his voice though, like sort of like philosophizing
Oh yeah.
about space and the meaning of life and all that, and a tree basically comes to life and grabs the sheriff, and that's the only effect in the whole movie I didn't like, because it was just really obvious, kind of shaky CG.
Yeah.
What's a bit rough, but
It wasn't great. I wouldn't say it like bothered me like too much. Maybe I give it more of a pass because I was so into it at that moment. I don't know, but
I think it stuck out to me because all of the other effects either felt practical or at least felt like it was kind of toned down, whereas this felt like an over the top moment wise. But so Ward survives, and he ends up like, I love how it almost looks black and white when he gets out, because when he sort of goes down to the basement, and then when everything calms down in the morning, he comes out, like it may actually be in black and white, it might not be, I can't actually tell. It might just be because there's so much ash and like the smoke and fog that everything just looks black and white. And essentially there's a dam now here over everything, and he's there later, and he gives this bit of narration where he talks about how the water covers everything here now, but I will never drink from this water. And he's kind of scared that more stuff might come from outer space, and that he can't comprehend really what this life form was or what this was, or and it just ends in this kind of ambivalent kind of like, oh, what was that? It was some powerful force and entity that we can't really understand or comprehend. I wish it. I guess that's my thing, is I wish it was more incomprehensible. I wanted like a real mind f of a movie. But I like ending on this sentiment though. It feels right for what the Lovecraftian idea is,
Yeah, it feels very much like in tone with that kind of like, I mean, just in general of it being depressing. It kind of feels like it fits, because I think a lot of his stories ends with someone either going mad or dying, or like just not being able to comprehend what's going on.
I mean, if I was to read into kind of what the movie's doing or what the story's doing, is it's kind of like the color kind of takes whatever everyone's going through and has them all kind of go mad based on that thing and what their own insecurities are. So it kind of feels like it's overwhelming with your own nature, and in this case it's kind of turned up to 11 because it's like the nature of like this cosmic entity. But if you want to be internal about it, it's really more of just about being overwhelmed by like their own life, essentially. That's a bit fruity sounding, but like I think you get what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, totally. And I like the contrast of like, everything had looked so like bright and colorful and fantastical, and then it just ends with just this giant like crater of white ash. Like everything is just like all the color is gone.
No, that's good. I don't want to sound like I've been negative about it, because I actually think the movie's solid. I think it's a solid movie that just wasn't quite exactly what I was expecting. But I can't really fault it too much for that necessarily. Like I say, I would cut out maybe a little bit of time, maybe tighten the pacing up a little bit. But I think the cast is good. I think it's well directed, and it doesn't hold back once it goes to the weird stuff in the last third. So that's all positive points. One or two plot points that are introduced that feel like they don't really go anywhere, but other than that, it's not a bad time, certainly.
I think it's especially like impressive too. Again, just the idea of like Richard Stanley hasn't made a movie in like I guess like what, 40-ish years, because like Hardware was, or well, maybe like 30 years or so, because like Hardware would have been like 90s 80s
1990 1991, so basically just under 30 years.
Yeah, so it's like it doesn't it doesn't feel like someone that's like rusty or
I think that's probably why I felt I was like expecting some sort of weird quirky movie, because it's this guy who's not made a movie in so long, and even the movie that I did see of his did feel kind of offbeat and felt a bit weird. So I think this feeling like such a normal movie really threw me for a loop. I was expecting something else.
Yeah, and I mean, especially if you, you really gotta. That documentary is just so wild. I think everyone should check it out. But yeah, when you actually see him speak, I think he's a very cool dude, but he is definitely a, very strange person. Like, he talks a lot about magic and, like doing spells and, that different kind of stuff. So yeah, you would expect his things to be maybe a little kookier.
Yeah, really, really weird. But yeah, so we're going to rate it, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really dig this. I think, yeah, like it's not absolutely perfect. Like, yeah, there's like, a few faults here or there. But nothing major, nothing that really takes away my enjoyment of the movie. I think there's so many cool effects and visuals, and the characters are all really likable. I do agree with what you're saying. Like, maybe it might be a little more interesting if maybe there was one that was kind of central, or maybe a little bit more focused to follow. Yeah, I get that, but I mean, I do think it also works. Yeah, the way it is, and I see, like, and it feels like it. I don't want to say that it's like ripping anything off from like other movies, but it feels like it reminds me of like so many other movies that we love, like The Shining or The Thing, or like those kind of stuff. So yeah, man, I think it's really good. I think I'm gonna give it an 8.5. So very high score, not quite perfect or anything, but it's pretty up there for me.
Yeah. I think I'm going a little bit lower. I don't think I can quite put it in the great category, which is, to me, great is kind of an 8. So I think I'm going to go just a little bit lower than that and say 7.5. And it may be one that grows on me, maybe like knowing what it is now, maybe next time I see it, if maybe it'll work for me even better than this time.
Sure.
But I don't think it quite reaches great. I think it's good and solid and interesting, has a lot of really worthwhile qualities to it. It's well made. So I would definitely recommend people check it out. I think we let's be honest, out of the new movies we watch, so much of them are garbage. it is sometimes we have to remember there can be just good movies that aren't great, aren't going to be like the best of all time. Not everything that's good or great is a 9 or a 10 or whatever. Some movies are just good, and I would describe this movie as just good. With some interesting stuff. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's good. that's good. It's good to have good movies. I would love more of the shit we watch to just even sniff this quality, just so that we would have a nice palette of movies to talk about. But hey,
and I think one cool thing about this is I think they, after doing this and the pretty positive reception, that Stanley's going to do more Lovecraft adaptations. I think he's talked about wanting to do the Dunwich Horror. I think was he said the next one he was interested in doing. But yeah, I'd definitely be all for that if they do end up doing it.
Hey, I mean, we'll check more of them out. I'd be up for it. Hey, if he's got enough clout to get names like Nick Cage still, then yeah, even better. Great. Anyway, could play. So there you go. That is Color Out of Space. Spelt incorrectly, of course, without the U. I mean, how dare they? But that, you can let us know what you think of the movie in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can get us on the Twitters at Screams Midnight for updates and wacky comments from Tim and whatever else goes on. You can, of course, support us on Patreon, as we mentioned earlier, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Rate the podcast as well on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to it. It helps us out a lot. More people will find us that way, so that's obviously a big help that you can do for free. You don't have to give us anything for that, you can just do it. So that is us. So check out all this stuff. I would be weird not to mention I'm wearing a Wheel and Yutani shirt. Now obviously this will go up in a few weeks time, so it'll be a bit later, but I mentioned the sci-fi podcast earlier, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, the ACE, and I'm specifically mentioning it now because we're recording this on Alien Day, which is April 26th, because LV 426. So me and Tara talked about the Alien for like almost 2 hours, I think. So go check out the Alien review, and anything else we do. But yeah, so that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.